This is a Global News special presentation.
Welcome to Global's Profiles in Courage. I'm Su-Ling. This is our annual look back at some of the most inspiring Albertans of the year. So if you need a lift or even some perspective, these are stories about people who overcame overwhelming health challenges and made a difference doing it. So we begin with a local farmer who is growing hope and inspiration well beyond rural Alberta. The 64-year-old Ponoka area man suffered severe electrical burns, but his medical team says David Apt brought his rural work ethic with him to rehab.
David Apt was helping to install a gate when the tractor he was next to got too close to an overhead power line.
And I was the easiest route to ground, so power come all through me.
He was airlifted to hospital, where a doctor told his wife David had severe electrical burns. He might not make it.
And so, yeah, it was just a waiting game to see, how he came through.
David had a total of 9 surgeries, excruciating skin grafts and amputations. He lost his left arm, his right leg, and fingers on his right hand. Surgeons replaced his thumb with his big toe.
Wasn't too bad. They were pretty amazed how fast I learned to use the hand, and the same with the foot.
The trickiest part of learning to use a prosthetic leg was not being able to use his hands to balance himself.
His rehab journey definitely had setbacks along the way. Nothing was straightforward.
Staff at the Glenrose Rehabilitation Hospital adapted a walker for David, but the prosthesis was hard on newly grafted skin, and his progress was interrupted a few times to wait for wounds to heal.
But he's a farmer. He'd get stuff done and very determined.
He's just got a get-her-done attitude. He would never back down. He was never quit. Showed up every day.
He also encouraged other patients, the few people he could see in person due to COVID-19 restrictions.
By the time I met him and we started to maybe talk a little bit, they went home. And I'd had to find somebody different, and then they went home.
When David went home 6 months after his electric shock, he had a lot of work to do, caring for 7 horses, 43 cows, and 3 bulls, not to mention his family and his wife of 44 years. They both consider themselves very lucky.
A miracle. Yeah, shouldn't have lived, but we're so thankful he did.
David is still able to do most of the work he did before, but he is hoping to be able to ride his beautiful horses again. Now, it was a series of medical misfortunes. A little boy from Sherwood Park lost 3 kidneys, including 2 donor kidneys, in less than 2 years, a very rare case. But he and his family are so amazing, their healthcare team is hoping to cheer them up with a volcanic vacation.
Eruption!
5-year-old Dax has been obsessed with volcanoes for most of his life. Volcano birthday cakes, toys, and lots of lava in his hospital rooms.
Every time he gets a poke and blood comes out, it's a volcano poke.
It's an eruption.
It's an eruption from his arm.
Dax himself burst into the Abercrombies' lives at age 1 as a foster child. He was born with urinary tract issues and by age 4 needed a kidney transplant.
I always had the thought that I'd probably be a good option.
Foster dad Brad stepped up to donate, but within a few days that kidney failed. Last spring, another kidney came up from a deceased donor. Doctors were optimistic.
Usually transplants work. Kidney transplants are highly successful. And the surgeon had told us nobody's this unlucky twice.
Dax's second new kidney gave him a normal life. He ate nonstop and was full of energy. The family started planning a trip to Hawaii so Dax could see real volcanoes. Then another serious setback.
And the surgeon came in and said, there's this aneurysm. We need to get him to the OR. And first we will try to save the boy, and then we'll try to save the kidney.
The donor kidney didn't survive, and the medical team even had to remove one of Dax's own kidneys to use its parts to save him. He now needs hemodialysis, hooked up to a machine for 4 hours, 3 days a week. Family friend and physician Catherine Peters has been trying to organize the expensive procedure in Hawaii to make Dax's dream trip come true.
How do you tell him after the 10th surgery, oh, well, guess what? You're sicker now than ever. We're tied to the hospital. We can't go. That's just heartbreaking.
Dax was only supposed to be with the Abercrombies a few days a month. They adopted him last year. And though another kidney match is unlikely, they hope their boy will continue to light up their lives for a long time.
Didn't take much to fall in love with that kid.
Make-A-Wish will cover 1 week of the trip, but since Dax is on dialysis 3 days a week, his medical team is trying to send him for longer, hopefully next summer. So far, their GoFundMe account has collected nearly $35,000. Well, coming up, she's not your average teenage girl. At 14, Isabel has already overcome more than most adults will ever have to face. And later, he died of ALS, but his buddies are keeping his spirit alive with beer. Stay with us. Welcome back to Profiles in Courage, Global's annual special about some of the most inspiring Albertans we met this year. Well, this St. Albert teenager has always been impressive, but her bravery in coping with a heartbreaking condition is truly special. At first, her parents thought she had food poisoning, but that was the first sign of a serious condition. And the 14-year-old continued to surprise in the hospital by being a shining light.
Isabel Berube excelled in sports and school. She was ready to tackle grade 9 when she started to feel dizzy and nauseous. It turned out she had a brain tumor.
It was shocking. It was scary. It was unbelievable. It was not Isabel.
And things got worse. After surgery to remove the mass, the then 13-year-old developed posterior fossa syndrome. She lost control of her muscles.
So she was on a feeding tube. She was mute for almost 4 weeks. She couldn't move.
Isabel spent last Christmas in the Stollery Children's Hospital. She communicated mainly by blinking.
Usually it was like I would blink like I would want no, and they were like, yes? The red one. The red one.
I won't help you. You've got it.
By the time she arrived at the Glenrose Rehabilitation Hospital, Isabel could say just a few words. For 7 months, she lived in the Glenrose, working on skills like standing, dressing herself, and eating.
Look at you. Beautiful. Nice.
She has been unwavering in her motivation and perseverance and her positivity with everything.
Because of the pandemic, hospital visitors were limited. Her therapists say despite Isabel's loneliness and frustration, she was a bright light for everyone.
She was just so pleasant to be around and so gracious and so grateful.
Nice. 11 seconds, but the whole thing was perfect.
Glenrose staff have chosen the teen for a Courage Award.
I'm happy because that's kind of what I am.
She was a trooper. She was very brave, handled it better than I did. I think I cried more than she did.
She keeps fighting and she keeps going. That's just her style.
Isabel is now back in school full-time in grade 10. Well, you might remember this little girl from a previous Profiles in Courage show. She has a serious disorder, but she's trying to boost spirits and raise funds for others. Jordan Gagnon won a Glenrose Courage Award in 2019 for bravely facing giant axonal neuropathy. The rare genetic disorder is slowly shutting down her body. However, the 11-year-old came up with an idea for shirts that celebrate strength. She and her school's girls club brainstormed and came up with words that described them, including unique, determined, and powerful. Then Jordan's mother designed the inspirational tops.
You know, Jordan going through this journey and, you know, seeing so many professionals and so many people who are like in her corner, they are always building her up.
Almost every day, I hear like, Jordan, you're so easygoing, you're so brave, you're so strong. And I want girls to know how special they are.
And Jordan says, of course, anyone can wear the shirts, not just girls. The website is goingwiththegagnos.com. 20% of the profits will be donated to treatments and research for other kids with rare conditions. Now, many of us have been struggling with our mental health during the pandemic, and one Edmonton woman has shown exceptional courage in facing a brutal time in her life. After a series of tragedies nearly broke her, she has managed to get back on her feet.
Vivian Barty says her daughter Deanne will always be her baby. She had severe disabilities, and Vivian took care of her for 35 years until she passed away suddenly.
There was very little warning. She just went to sleep, and that destroyed us.
3 months later, another shocking loss, Vivian's son, Gordon. And 3 months after that, her mother, Esther, also died. Vivian sunk into a deep depression. Daughter Terry Barber says for more than 2 years, her mom was a shell of herself.
I truly didn't know what was going to help. We tried so many things, and you feel helpless.
In the fall of 2020, Vivian's doctor referred her to the Start Psychiatry Day Hospital at the Glenrose Hospital.
At first I thought, I'm not sure really what they can do for me. You know, I'd rather be home and sitting in the dark and crying.
When we first met Vivian, she was completely broken up.
Psychiatrist David Rawani and the rest of the START team guided Vivian through individual and group therapies. But a few months into the program, on the anniversary of Deanne's death, Vivian was diagnosed with eye cancer. Despite radiation and surgery, she kept showing up and shared a lot with other patients.
I think she was a big inspiration for people to understand that grief is very collective. It's not individualized, and we can always learn from other people's journeys.
I really admired her her perseverance, her resilience.
Vivian says hope slowly crept in. She started laughing again.
They don't fix you, but they help you realize that maybe you can fix yourself a little bit. Enough to carry on. See if I can get it straight.
Staff of the Glenrose say it took courage for Vivian just to get out of bed, and her loved ones are grateful she did.
Made all the difference for our family, because without her, we wouldn't be where we are.
Vivian is the very proud grandma of 3 grandkids. Well, we'll take a quick break, but stay with us. After losing their son, one Alberta family is hoping their unique fundraiser will help make a difference for others. Plus, the important life lessons one young cancer survivor learned and how he's sharing them. That story next. Welcome back to Profiles in Courage. Remember the Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS? Well, an Edmonton family is hoping for similar success with a new challenge they created. It involves jumping onto a box and raising funds for people with an ultra-rare disorder, the one that took their son's life.
Stevie Schwartzberg was born with familial dysautonomia, FD, a rare genetic disorder in people of Ashkenazi Jewish descent. It attacks the nervous system.
Stevie could injure himself and not really be aware of it.
Or on a cold day, if it was really cold, he couldn't feel that his fingers were getting frozen.
He also had no tears and issues with blood pressure, body temperature, swallowing, and balance. Despite that, he loved working out with his trainer, Joel Schneider.
His attitude changed my attitude, because with everything that he was dealt with in life, he never once let that hold him back or stop him.
One thing Stevie wanted to try was a box jump, and one day Joel finally gave in.
And I think in the back of my mind, I was just like, don't fall, don't hurt yourself. And yeah, he nailed that box jump.
Oh, nice!
Yeah. It's like that box jump just symbolizes just everything that he was about in terms of jumping over his barriers.
Stevie died in 2017 at 35 years old, but he continues to inspire.
So, to raise funds for FD, this is the Box Jump Challenge.
The Schwartzbergs are urging Canadians to share a video of their box jumps, any height, and donate to the FD Foundation. The funds will support a virtual mental health program, especially important for people with FD, because any heightened emotion is hard on the body.
They get all red and they are hypertensive and their heart rate goes incredibly high. So it's almost like a panic episode.
Stevie's parents say the program helped him cope, and he wanted to help others leap over their hurdles too.
He loved life to the fullest, and this would have been one of his special events of his life.
He would have thought it was outside the box.
The Box Jump Challenge has raised more than $35,000 for that program so far. Videos came in from as far away as Great Britain, New Zealand, and Bali. Well, a young Edmonton man who survived a harrowing ordeal has penned a book about his experience, and the 22-year-old hopes his work can help others who are struggling right now. Chris Stewart says the uncertainty of the pandemic can feel like the uncertainty of cancer, and one thing that helped him was writing.
Chris Stewart never thought he'd be an author, and he definitely never predicted he'd have cancer at age 18.
This story is really about getting dealt one of the worst hands possible and finding a way to play it.
He was in grade 12 when the nosebleeds and vomiting began. For months, doctors didn't know what was wrong until his parents carried him into emergency.
It was a nasal tumor, and it had kind of spread up and gone around my brain and then gone to my neck too.
There were 7 tumors in all, one the size of his fist. The rare type of neuroblastoma was considered stage 4, and his family was told he wouldn't make it.
So then I woke up in a hospital after emergency brain surgery, and 4 months had gone by, but I didn't remember any of it. It was pretty crazy.
3 surgeries, 5 rounds of chemo, and 27 radiation treatments later, Chris was left with nerve damage, which affects his right eye and his strength. He also has memory issues, but he can't forget how people treated him before his nose was reconstructed.
People became really shallow, and it really showed me that lots of people right now, well, it specifically in kind of my age group, have become really reliant on face value.
It's one of many lessons this now 22-year-old has written about in his first book, Breakthrough. Chris says writing, along with his family and counseling, got him through the dark days. He's learned failure is actually important.
I failed so much when I was trying to build my body strength back up, or trying to improve my confidence, but I like failing meant one thing. It meant that I was trying.
He went from struggling to move to running at least 5K every day, and he's back in university. Chris knows youth and luck were on his side when it came to surviving cancer, but everything he's accomplished since came from within.
You know, if there's something that you want, there's no excuse. If there's somebody telling you can't do something, it's not them stopping you. You're the one that's stopping you.
Chris says he's learned to pursue what he loves and switched from studying business to psychology. He also does presentations for schools, and he's working on a new book. Well, coming up, it was the most fitting tribute his friends could think of, why they decided to put their buddy's face on cans of beer, and the difference that's made for many. Stay with us. The The legacy of a young Edmonton man who died of a devastating disease is living on in a unique way. His face is featured on cans of beer. Adam Rombo's friends say it's a fitting tribute because even though ALS didn't leave him with much time, he made the most of it.
If Adam Rombo ever had the chance to see his face on a beer can, he would have had a good laugh and opened his wallet.
He would have bought all Albertans the first round. So I think like that is who he is.
Friends say he was the life of the party, but at age 33, Adam started stumbling, both in his steps and his speech.
I wondered if it was drinking, to be completely honest. And he shared with me that night that he had ALS, and I just broke down.
Adam had this video made to help explain what the neurodegenerative disease is and what it does. Bit by bit, his body stopped working until he died just 14 months after his diagnosis. Adam's motto was, "I'm not dying slowly, I'm living quickly."
He wanted to make whatever time he had left mean something. He wanted to leave a legacy for people.
While he still could, Adam started fundraising for the ALS Society of Alberta to help buy expensive equipment for people who couldn't afford it.
Most isn't covered, or it takes so long to get it, and as ALS progresses so quickly, the person, they can't wait for months and months for something.
In 1 year, he collected $90,000, and he continues to raise more, thanks to the friends he inspired to make Adam's Pale Ale. Sea Change Brewing is donating part of the proceeds to the society.
It embodies who he was, not thinking about himself, thinking about others, and this is just a continuation of that.
Buyers are encouraged to cheers on social media with the hashtag #OneOnAdam. Tammy Rombo says her son has always brought people together.
I'm so proud of him. I mean, we miss him horribly, but if he hadn't died, this wouldn't have happened. The awareness wouldn't have happened.
That fundraiser collected more than $8,000 for the ALS Society of Alberta, and among those who posted pictures with Adam's Pale Ale on social media was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and actor Nathan Fillion. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Profiles in Courage. We hope all these stories touched you as much as they inspired us. Happy holidays.